Alright, welcome back to another fun stuff episode where we just rank stuff. I mean, what else can we do, right? Today we're going to be ranking Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. So this includes Rowley Jefferson's stuff, Awesome Friendly Kid, whatever, and then actual Diary of a Wimpy Kid. This is just fun stuff. Take a break from football because clearly football is just, it's boring now. When I do get MLB The Show 22, I'll probably be uploading that more than Madden or NFL. Draft content will obviously be pretty big coming up, but we're focusing on Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That's why you clicked on this video. Let's get right into it. We got S, A, B, C, D, F, the classic tiers. There's nothing to explain. So let's get into the Awesome Friendly Kids. So let's start off with the first one, the Awesome Friendly Kid. The first book in the series, it's a C. The Awesome Friendly Kid books in general are just not very good for me. I think they're extremely boring, and they just don't really contribute to the storyline. I just don't like them. Awesome Friendly Kid, though, it was pretty cool to see the story in Rowley Jefferson's point of view. We can really see what a dumb idiot Greg Heffley actually is to his friend. But yeah, that's really what Awesome Friendly Kid's all about, just seeing it in a different perspective. And it's pretty cool, but in the end, it's just a very average book because it turns out to be Greg's diary, Greg's biography, you know? I would like to see more of Rowley's story in there. Next up, we got Rowley's Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Adventure. I don't know what it's called. I've read it before. It's just, it completely goes off the storyline. I think it's terrible, alright? The adventure itself is okay, but it just doesn't make sense. I don't understand why you would include it with a series that's supposed to be realistic, or at least, you know, sort of realistic fiction. It's not completely realistic, because, trust me, middle school is not even close to how Diary of a Wimpy Kid portrays it, but there's obviously some trolls, but an awesome friendly adventure with mythical creatures just doesn't make sense to what Jeff Kinney's actually been writing for the past, I don't know, a long time. And then the spooky stories, it just goes along with it. The book itself may not be that bad, but it just doesn't go along with the storyline. Next up, we got the actual Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. Now, this is gonna be where it starts to get, you know, a bit controversial because a lot of people like different books. Let's start off with Big Shot. It's the last book that Jeff Kinney has released. Obviously, he can't stop. He just can't stop, so he's gonna keep writing books. But Big Shot, at this moment in time, is the latest book that Jeff Kinney has published, and I'm not gonna lie, it was okay. It's nothing better than okay. That's all I'm gonna say. It's these past couple of books, like 14, 15, 16, they've all just been very average and below average. Maybe Wrecking Ball deserves a bit more credit than it gets, but Big Shot's okay. At least it's more realistic than the previous book, which we'll get to in a bit. Next up, we got Cabin Fever. I really like this book, but it just feels like it drags on and on and on. And honestly, I like the storyline, but it feels like it never ends. That's why I'll give it a B. It's nothing higher than a B. I think that's a perfect tier for the book. There's really not much I can say. It just drags along. The storyline's fine, though. Next up, we got Double Down. You know what? Let's rank these in the tiers. So Big Shot's obviously better than Awesome Friendly Kid. Double Down is probably one of my favorite books in the series. I'm not going to give it an S because S is like the complete, amazing, best, unbelievable, you know? But Double Down's certainly great. I'm not going to say it's anything better, however, you know? It's just very close to being elite. Next up, we got Dog Days, another really good Wimpy Kid book. This is when the series had obviously started. This is when the stories didn't start to get crazy and Jeff Kinney starts to run out of ideas. Dog Days, on the other hand, though, is just a good story in general, right? It never gets old. Obviously, you know, you don't say, hey, I want to read Dog Days. But if you just want to take a break from other Wimpy Kid books, you go towards, you know, Dog Days and The Ugly Truth, and books like that are severely underrated. Next up, we got Hard Luck. In my opinion, another really good story. But, just like Cabin Fever, it just drags on too much. It's a bit better than Cabin Fever, but it's it's extremely average for me because this is the latest book I've read because I've read each of these books like 100 times as a kid, like really small, 4 to 5 years old. I used to read these a ton, right? Hard Luck, the story just drags on, and I don't. You can clearly tell I don't like stories that continuously drag on. While the storyline's good, it's certainly not the best story out of the bunch. Next up, we got Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the first ever book, probably the most realistic, I would say. Even though, again, the way they portray middle school is just through Greg's eyes. It's completely not the same in real life, believe me. But it's not the best book, but since it is, the first ever book, I have to give it an S. It's just out of respect. It's out of pure nostalgia that I give it an S tier. I don't think it's that great, as many other people may think, but it's the start of the series. You can't really hate on it. Next up, we got Old School. Probably one of the most average books ever. It's probably also one of the most boring books ever in the entire series. Honestly, it's very severely underrated, but I kind of, did I say overrated or underrated? Underrated, right? But I think I underrate it too, in quite a bit. But it's another book that you just don't really feel like going back to. It's just a book that you read like 1 or 2 times, and then you move on. It's an okay story. It's just pretty boring. Next up, we got Roderick Rules, the best story because we see more of my favorite character, Roderick. You hear this in every YouTube video, but literally, Roderick is my favorite character. Trust me, Roderick is my favorite character, and just like everyone says in their YouTube video, and we don't see him as much as I would like to, right? Personally, I love Roderick. I really do. Next up, we got The Deep End, the piece of shit that Jeff Kinney released. It's the most unrealistic story. It's the most boring story. It's the worst story. All right, he's running out of ideas. At least Big Shot was pretty good, but Deep End was just terrible. He didn't have any idea what to do. Right? I respect Jeff Kinney. He wrote probably one of the most famous series in the entire world, but The Deep End is just an embarrassment to this entire franchise. Next up, you got The Getaway. Ooh, this is another one. I love The Getaway. I really do. I've read this a lot more than a lot of other books in the series. I love The Getaway. I'm going to snub it, though. I'm only going to have 2 in S. I'm going to put The Getaway in A, right? But it's the best one in A. Number 11, number 12, and we'll get to number 13. They're just so good. They're just really, really good. You can't hate on them. Next up, you got The Long Haul, the worst movie, one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. But overall, the book, it was pretty good, right? It's better than Hard Luck for sure, because the story just doesn't drag on as much. The Long Haul, there's always action. It's a pretty good book, that's all I can say. Next up, we got The Last Straw. It's one of the most forgettable books, along with another book, which we'll get to in a bit. The Last Straw is just not that memorable for me. Like all these other books, and again, one more on this list that we'll talk about, but it's okay, but I don't really remember the storyline as much. I remember, like, Greg going swimming, but it's meh, that's all it is. Next up, you got The Meltdown. This is number 13. It's also really good. I'm telling you, man, Jeff Kinney just went on a streak. The Meltdown's, again, another one, just like The Deep End, one of the most unrealistic books. But it's also one of the best books, because there's always action, you always love the storyline, right? It's clearly has a plot, it's winter, and they're just kids being stupid and having the biggest snowball fight in history. I was going to say in NFL history, I'm way too used to saying that. Next up, you got The Third Wheel. It's, again, another average. You're just not going to come back to it. It's a book like Old School that you're going to read once or twice, and you're going to put it back in the bookshelf and say, hey, that was a good book, but I'm going to move on. I think Hard Luck, Long Haul, maybe I think Old School as well. Double Down, Getaway, Meltdown, and even The Wrecking Ball are just way better than The Third Wheel. After, like, he went on a streak for a while, and then he just cut it with The Deep End. Next up, we got The Ugly Truth, another one that I was talking about with The Last Straw. This is just one of the most forgettable books of the entire series. It just doesn't have that big of a plot, and maybe it's because it's maybe too realistic, but it's really underrated for me, right? Another book which I've not read too often, but I may just get back to it, because I still read those Diary of a Wimpy Kid books to this day, whenever I'm, bored and have nothing to do. As finally, we got Diary of a Wimpy Kid Wrecking Ball to cap off this video. Ooh. Where does this go? Wrecking Ball is not a good storyline, but overall, the book is not bad. I'm gonna snub it from B. I'm gonna give it a C, and I think it's behind. No, it's better than Big Shot. Wrecking Ball, the storyline again is just not very intriguing like many other, but it's still it's still an okay book. But that is gonna do it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed as always, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.